Hello. I am just running a minute late, so I am still getting things set up. All right, phone on Do Not Disturb, pulling up my pattern so I know where I'm at. Okay. Hello, let's do this. I had a dirty spot. I don't think I got it off. I don't know. But that's okay. Got my needle. All right, we are just gonna work with our orange today. So 921, we're gonna stitch our pumpkin first. But just the pumpkin, not the stem and stuff with it. So, are we ready? Okay. Let me get this in my hoop stand. And then we will start stitching. How was everyone's weekend? Did anyone do anything fun? My husband was out of town working, and so we just hung around the house, and I listened to audiobooks all weekend. It was amazing. Okay. That's what we're gonna do. All right, so first things first. Let me pull this up on my other phone so I can see comments, because I got a new phone holder and it is hard. It's hard to see comments sometimes. Okay, so if you have a comment or a question, you can just leave them in the comment box. You don't need to use the question little icon because I don't see those. I mean, I can, but it's harder to go back and forth. So, okay. So when you're pulling thread out, make sure that you are pulling from the number end. If you find an end here and you start pulling from it, you're more likely to get knots in your thread. So make sure you're pulling from this end. And I usually pull, if you're brand new to embroidery, I might suggest pulling enough like from your fingertips to like your elbow or the middle of your bicep. Bicep, that's funny. The middle of your bicep, just so you don't have too much thread. If it's too long, it's a little bit harder to work with. I personally work with it longer because I am comfortable with that. But if you are brand new, I would suggest doing a little bit shorter just until you figure things out. So we are going to use all 6 strands. This DMC cotton thread their embroidery thread is 6 stranded, so you can pull these apart. We'll use less strands on other parts, so I'll show you how to pull that apart, but we are going to use all 6 for our pumpkins. So we're just going to leave these together. All right, so one of the things that I do that I know is sometimes controversial is I wet the ends of mine with my tongue. Some people don't like to get their thread wet like that. I don't have a problem with it. And then I squeeze it between 2 fingers and make it really flat. And then I can just put it right in my needle. And I promise this is a skill that gets easier. But that's what we're doing. All right, so we're gonna have a bit of a tail, and then at our other end, we're going to just tie a little knot. There's other ways to start your embroidery projects if you don't want knots in it. I'm not gonna teach you those ways because I don't do them. I don't mind having knots, so I just have a little tiny knot there that will be behind my project. Hold on. I'm having a hard time seeing my phone too. Let me pull this up on my iPad. Okay, there. Then I can see questions better that way. Okay, so what we're gonna do is a satin stitch. So a satin stitch is just a super basic, use it all the time kind of a stitch. When I'm doing satin stitch, I generally will start in the middle and then work my way that way. Now you could do a satin stitch in a vertical line or a horizontal line or at an angle. I'm gonna do a horizontal line just because that sounds good to me. But you could do it a different way if you want. So what we're gonna do is come up from the back. This fabric is pulling funny. First thing I like to, when I'm doing a satin stitch, is just seeing where I want it to go. So if we're doing like a diagonal line, that's the word, then it's nice to see like, do I want it to land there? Do I want it to land there? Just trying to figure out kind of where we want it to go. So we're just gonna do straight lines this time. And there we have our first stitch. Now if this is a little bit looking not very smooth, you can put your needle under there and kind of smooth it out. All right, so satin stitch, we always come up on one side and go down on the other, and we do that the whole time. We always come up on the same side and go down on the same side. There's other ways to do satin stitch, but I feel like it looks the best, it looks the smoothest if we go up on one side and down on the other. It uses more thread, but I think that it's worth it because it looks a lot smoother. So when we're going down, make sure you're going down on your line and that these are pretty close together. If there's a gap between your stitches, you can always go back and add another stitch. It's not like end of the world or anything like that. So if you're having some struggles, it's okay. You can go back and fill it in. But pretty much this is how it looks. If you are having struggles with it looking smooth, you can also try using fewer strands. If you use like 3 or 4 strands versus the 6, it will be a little bit easier to get them smooth. I keep bumping this, I'm sorry. But the biggest thing is just making sure that they are lying side by side and that you're keeping the same angle. Even when it's just a horizontal line and you think, yeah, those are fine. Sometimes they get a little bit crazy. And if you notice one, like this one has like a little bit that's like sticking up. If I had fixed that earlier, it would be a little bit easier, but fixing those like line by line, if they're like poking up a little or not quite smooth, if you fix them right away, you're less likely to have issues with it being smooth in the future. Satin stitch is one of the stitches that I use on a very regular basis. It's great for filling in tons of different areas. You can change how it looks depending on what direction you're stitching. So you can like if you're doing things like side by side and one's vertical and one's horizontal, it'll totally change the look of it. Somebody is commenting in another language and I don't know if I can, hold on, see if I can translate that. Whoop, sorry. Sorry, I don't know what that says, but thank you for commenting. Anyways, satin stitch is great for so many different things. It's a really important one to learn. I know some people don't love satin stitch, but I promise you, if you can learn to do it well, that it will serve you for future projects. because it is a great stitch to use all over. Plus it also helps when creating other similar stitches. Like this week we'll learn the fishbone stitch. And if you can get a smooth satin stitch, then fishbone stitch is a little bit easier. So it's a good one to always be practicing and making sure that you're doing it well. My fabric is like not super tight right here. If you feel like your fabric is kind of loose and you're having a hard time, like when you're pulling that through, if it's like pulling your fabric, just like go in and re-pull your fabric in your hoop. Just pull it a little bit tighter and maybe tighten your hardware a little bit. Because if it starts like bunching around your stitches, then it's not pulled tight enough. Okay, so when I'm doing a curved edge and I'm near the bottom, what I like to do is kind of come up at an angle. So instead of coming like straight up, I'm coming kind of at an angle. And then I go back down at an angle, kind of almost under that stitch. It'll help it look a little bit more rounded versus just straight. Now, if you're gonna go in with your needle and fix things, do it slowly and carefully, because this is a sharp needle, so it could like snag other things around it, but I like to kind of just go in and like smooth that out a little bit, and helps create like that nice rounded shape. Okay, so I usually do half and then I'll come back and do the other half. The only thing, so going back to knots, if you're working with a knot, just make sure you remember where you put it. So on the back side, I'm just using my middle finger to kind of pull that knot down, just like right behind it, and pull it down a little bit so that I can go up next to it. Because you want to make sure you're not grabbing onto a knot when you're coming back up. So if I pull that knot kind of this way and then put my needle up, then it's not gonna try and grab that knot and pull it up to the front. So I ended down here and I just came up over here. Depending on how far my thread is traveling, I won't go like that. Like if I was going like from here, like over to here, I probably wouldn't travel my thread that far because you're more likely to see it from the front. I mean, not right here because we're gonna put stuff, but kind of be conscious of like where your thread is traveling behind your hoop so that you don't see it from the front. Like if we were going like from here to here, right here in this space, there's nothing gonna be stitched right here. And so we don't want to have a thread right there if we can avoid it, because you'll be able to see it from the front of your project a little bit. So, but from here to here, this area is all covered, so it's not a big deal. And then we'll just go in here and finish our pumpkin. Now this is gonna, if you're using all 6 strands, it's gonna use more thread than some of the other things that we're gonna do. So I don't remember if we were using orange for another area though. Let me look. Yeah, this is the only spot we're using orange. So if you use up your whole skein, that's fine. If you don't have a full skein, maybe use 4 strands. But once we run out, we will just get some more. Okay, so right here, I can kind of tell that this is starting to go, instead of straight, it's starting to kind of just tilt up a little bit. So what I'm gonna do to get that back to straight before it gets too crazy is I'm gonna come up a little bit further on this side. So instead of going right next to it, I'm gonna go up just a little bit, not very much. Hang on. So like right there. And then when I go down, I'm gonna go down right next to it. And if you have to do that like 2 or 3 times to kind of even that out, that's okay. So I'm gonna come up just a little bit again on this one, and then down just right next to it. So that's a little bit straighter. Now, you can kind of see there's a little bit of a gap there. I'm not too super worried about it. Once we get our other stitches in there, it'll probably correct itself, but if it doesn't, then we can go back in and add another stitch between there. It's not going up where I want it. I went off my line a little bit. Amelia says, I see and appreciate your nails. So funny. It was noon, and I have an alarm that goes off at noon to remind me to take my vitamins because I don't remember that stuff. And I was looking at my nails and I was like, oh my gosh, I need to do that before my video. It's the only part of me that you really see, so they need to be fun. Don't worry, because I have Halloween ones for next month. But I appreciate you saying that because they are sparkly and floral and fun. I have been buying, I don't like, these are like stickers. They're just like really thin, really thin. They're like a thick, like vinyl sticker. I don't like plastic nails or like acrylic or gel or anything like that. They feel so heavy. So these ones are like little stickers. Halloween ones with the haunted house will be perfect. I know. Okay, so we're at the end. I'm gonna do one more. I'm gonna do that same thing. I'm gonna come up at an angle so I can kind of round this out. Oh man, I'm like right at the end of my thread. Hold on. I have to re-thread this. I didn't want to get a new piece just for this one little bit. So I came up at an angle and then I'm gonna go down at an angle. There. Okay, there is our center done. Let me flip this over. And that is what our back looks like. With satin stitch, if we started at one end and worked our way all the way up, it would look like this the whole way. But because I do it half and half, I have this one trailing, but I'm not worried about what the back looks like. Okay, so 2 ways to tie off your thread. This is one of the ways. I'll show you another way after the next section. So I just take half of the threads and just tie a knot. And I usually double or triple knot it just so it makes sure like it's not gonna get pulled through the fabric. See, I don't care about knots on my embroidery. I know other people sometimes do, but I don't care. Okay, so there is our first little section. Now let's do a couple more sections. I think I'll just do this half of the pumpkin and then I will let you do the other half on your own. So since I'm right-handed, I usually stitch right to left, but if you're left-handed, it might be easier to go left to right. Don't feel like you have to do it exactly like I'm doing it, because if you're left-handed, it's gonna be a little bit different. Or maybe you're right-handed and it still feels better to go left to right. That's fine too. So I'm doing the same thing. I am just doing this tiny little knot. Okay, and then the same thing. I'm gonna start in the middle and work my way down, and then I'll come back up and do the upside. So while we're talking about knots, just keep in mind that we still have this knot right here. So I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna come up on this side and down on this side, and when I go down, I'm just gonna pull that knot with my finger and pull that out of the way so that I can put my needle down where that knot is. Because what we're gonna do, since we're putting these right next to each other, is that we're gonna share these holes. So these holes that we came up in, we're gonna use them to go down in, so then there's not a gap between our stitches. So then we're not gonna be able to see any fabric between those. That's what we're going for. Helps keep things looking a little bit cleaner. If you're not using the same holes, you can always do, I feel like this is so shaky today. But you can do like a stitch between the two sections, which I'll show you later. But if you can just use the same holes, then it makes it a little bit smoother without having to do like extra work. But we're just gonna do this same thing all the way down. Do you guys have any questions about satin stitch? If you're watching this on the replay and you have questions, you can always message me. Don't feel like because you're not live that you can't ask questions. You can ask them in the comments in the video, or you can just direct message me. And if I don't get back to you within a couple of hours of direct messaging me, maybe if you've never messaged me before, then sometimes I've had problems with them going into like my hidden requests. So if I don't message you back, comment on the video and be like, hey, go read my message right now. But do you see how nicely those line up? Because we are using the same holes. This pumpkin is gonna be stinkin' cute. I'm glad I went with 6 strands. I really like 6 strands. It makes it like super thick and like plush. Like you can like see the texture, you can like really see it. I've been watching too many reels. Do you ever get like reels, songs stuck in your head? Especially when it's like a super popular audio and it just is on repeat in my head. I won't bore you with the song because I am a terrible singer, but super stuck in my head. All right, we're almost down to the bottom. I think I'm gonna do a couple kind of at an angle. I'm sorry, this is so shaky. I think I have it just stretched out a little too far. So that's my one I'm kind of doing at an angle. Okay, I'm gonna see if I can make this a little less shaky. Giselle said, yes, Macabre did it to me for a while. Oh my gosh, that song was insane. I think I used it like super early on for a reel, and then it just like, it got so crazy. I heard it like 400 times a day, I swear. I mean, it's like, it's fun to see what other people do with like the same audio, but man, sometimes I swear, like there is so many songs. Let's do something new. Let's find a new trending audio. Okay, this gap is still bugging me. I'm gonna fill it in. Okay, so let me just do a couple more so I'm not as close to it. One more right here, and then I'm gonna fill that in. I didn't think it would bug me, but it is, so I'm gonna fix it. Okay, so I wanted to move up a little bit because I'm just gonna bring my needle down right here and do one more stitch in there. So I'm just gonna come up between those. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna slide my needle in here like this to kind of open that up a little bit because that's where I want my thread to sit, so that it doesn't look like I had to come in and fill it in. There, way better. Okay, now I can come back and finish this. Was that bugging anyone else? Did you keep looking at it and thinking, that's gonna drive us all crazy? See, I'm starting to get this angle again. I've been doing embroidery for 4 years, and I'm still not perfect, guys. So if you're having issues, just remember, you are not the only one. Okay, do you want to watch me do one more section? Or are you bored of watching me stitch yet? Okay. Section 2, see how nice that line is? I think it's perfect for a pumpkin to not have anything else on that line. Like you could go over it with another stitch and just like clean it up if it's looking a little bit wonky, but I like it the way it is. Giselle says never. I know. Giselle's a good one. She likes to sit and watch me stitch. Okay, so I'm gonna go do the side then. So just remember, I can kind of see like my tail got pulled up in one of my stitches right here. So let me just show you real quick if that happens. If you come on to the back side and find your knot, you can kind of see right here that the tail got pulled through. I'm sure that's part of the reason why people don't like having a knot, but you can just pull that out. Lisa says more. All right. I'll do more. And we're just remembering where those knots are. I am going to stop after this side though, because I really hate stitching from left to right, and so I'm gonna have to turn my hoop around and hold it in my hand to do the other side. Some people don't knot the ends. Nope, some people don't. There's some different techniques that you can use to not have knots. Gosh, I can't think of the names. There's like the I want to call it like a waist away knot or something like that. It pretty much like you come up, you do your knot and you tie it here, and then you come over and you start stitching, and then as you stitch, like each stitch will hold it in place, and then you just cut this knot like from the top, and then you don't have a knot on the back, because once you've started stitching, like your stitches will just stay in place because of how tightly like embroidery stitches are. So you still have a knot, but it's not on the back, and then you cut it out and you just have like that tail on the back side. So then your back side is a little bit smoother, but I don't know. Are we interested in learning different things like that? I can teach you. I know how to do them. I can't remember what they're called, but I can do them. I just don't like to. So you tell me, if you're interested in learning something like that, let me know. Maybe I'll make a reel. Or I could teach it in a live, I'm sure, too. I always worry that it just like won't be secure and that my stitches will start like unraveling, which I know is silly, like they won't, but still freaks me out. Like, what if I did all this work and then it just like comes out? I'd like to see it, but I don't know if I'd try it. That makes me nervous. Yeah, for sure. It makes me nervous too. That's why I don't do it. Just give me my knots. I even do knots on cross stitch. That is very frowned upon. Ouch, I stuck my finger. If I stick my finger, I always wait a minute to make sure it's not gonna bleed, because there's been too many times that I have gotten, that I've bled on a project. I know this is kind of a longer day of stitching. Satin stitch takes a while, but it's worth it to learn it and know it and be able to do it. I have to see if my grandma knotted her cross stitch or not, but at Christmas they're packed away. Oh yeah, I always knot my cross stitch. Okay, I'm gonna show you, I don't have a whole lot of thread left. Normally I would use it until it's gone, but I am going to show you how I knot it. So if you keep it on your needle, what I like to do is to just grab some threads around it and go under them. And then going the same way under your thread and tie a knot like that. And I always hold on like on the front and the back. I pinch where the knot is gonna go when I pull it, because I don't want it to pull my threads around. And then you can just go ahead and trim that. So this isn't very much left. Like this isn't a piece that I would save. This would be a scrap piece that I would throw away, or yeah, this is not one that I would keep. If you have longer pieces though, keep those. You can use them for details or other projects or something. But a little piece like that, I personally wouldn't save. Oh, one more thing about satin stitch. I tend to, like if I'm doing two satin stitches together like I'm doing here with these ones, I try not to come up in a stitch. I always try to go up where there's nothing and down in the stitch, because coming up can sometimes, whoops, sorry I knocked you. If you come up in the stitch, you can sometimes like snag your threads and have it like pull your stitches kind of funny. And so that's why, hold on, I can't talk and thread a needle at the same time. Sometimes it takes me 3 or 4 times to be able to get this in here. There we go. But that's why I always work right to left. And then when I finish this side, I'll flip this around so that these are on this side, just so it's upside down, and stitch from this side to the center. Because I don't want to come up in my stitches. All All right, the other thing, since I have it right here while we're in the beginning stages of embroidery, little knots like this happen if your thread is too long. I'm used to it. It doesn't bug me. I know I can fix it without even looking at it, but it's usually just a slip knot or it's just like twisted around itself. So don't feel like it's going to be crazy or anything. It just gets twisted because it's long or whatever. Most of the time, if you get a knot while you're stitching, it's usually just a slip knot and it can easily be taken out as long as you don't like pull it super tight. I'm sure I will come up, I'm sure it'll happen while I'm stitching. I'll get a slip knot, and I will show you how to fix those when it happens. I don't know how to make it happen. It's just a normal part of embroidery, so I'm sure it'll happen at some point, especially because I use a longer thread. Oops, that one's too low. I couldn't decide. Whoa, that was a lot of words. I couldn't decide if I wanted this to be like super autumn or if I wanted to make it like kind of Halloween-y. I almost did like blacks and purples and greens and like added like spider webs and stuff in here. And then I decided not to because I want to do our haunted house one. And I thought we don't need 2 Halloween ones. But if you like Halloween better than fall time, you could totally change these colors and make them like purple. And instead of doing sunflowers, doing like spider webs. It'd be so cute. That's what I was thinking about doing. But I didn't. Or add in some little skulls or something. Gosh, it'd be fun. This time of the year, I always have so many ideas that I want to do and not enough time to do them. All right, there we go. Let me zoom you out just a little bit. So not perfect, but it's cute. And what pumpkin is perfect? None of them are perfect. We are not striving for perfection. We are learning and having fun. So I will finish this other side and then I will post a photo in the stories so you can see it all done. But that's all we're gonna do today. If you don't finish it today, you're totally fine. You can finish it another day. We'll move on tomorrow, but you won't have to have this done to be able to move on. So get this done. Let me know if you have questions and I will see you back here tomorrow. Have a good day, guys. Bye.